An early look at the waiver wire. Finally, we get to focus on some running backs. Welcome to Fantasy Football Today Express. Let's get it started. All right. So, Jamey, Kamani Vidal, 56% rostered. Here we go. Hopefully, this isn't a fake out like Michael Carter. I don't think it is. 18 carries, 124 yards, 3 catches, 14 yards, and a touchdown at Miami. He's got to be, if not the headliner, at least one of the headliners this week.
I mean, he is the headliner, Adam, obviously, based on what he did and the fact that we got the report that Omarion Hampton may not be back after his 4 weeks on injured reserve. So you could be looking at, several, maybe 6, 7, 8 weeks of Vidal as lead running back for the Chargers. So it clearly was a great matchup against Miami. We'll see how he does in week 7 against the Colts. But just knowing that there's a lot of bye weeks still coming up, a lot of injuries that we're dealing with, I feel thankful for the people that got ahead of this last week, and picked him up when he was not going to be as expensive. Now you probably have to spend at least 20% of your fab to go get him, just based on everybody now knowing that he's the guy. And I feel terrible for the people that picked up Hassan Haskins. I'm glad that we were, touting Vidal as the one to go get first. Not that we had any indication that it was going to be like this, but 21 total touches, I believe it was for Vidal, and 7 for Haskins. Clearly, this is the split I would assume the Chargers want to see moving forward with Vidal performing like this.
All right, so we'll come back to running back. Why don't we stay on running backs? We'll start with that, and we'll go to quarterbacks after that. Any other running backs to pick up?
I mean, the guy right after him, not to the same level, but is obviously, Zonovan Bam Knight, based on what he was able to accomplish as well. So we got the report before the slate started Sunday that the Cardinals were going to start Knight. I just kind of took it as he was going to have a bigger role. And that's exactly what happened. He played 37% of the snaps. Michael Carter played 32% of the snaps. Knight had more total touches. Carter played on a lot more third down opportunities. So it feels as if, especially now with Amari DiMercado dealing with the ankle injury, we see who the top 2 running backs are for the Cardinals. So we don't know, at least as of now, how long Trey Benson will be out. He will miss 3 more games, which takes them through week 11 because they have their bye in week 8. So you're not going to have Benson back until week 12 at the earliest. So you could be looking at Knight as a potential flex option. I don't want to start him if I don't have to against the Packers because their run defense is still obviously very good. That's what they play in week 7. But if you have the chance to pick him up, he's 9% rostered as of Monday.
Okay, and you said it's not really a great week for running back ads, but having 2 guys who could be in your lineup is actually pretty good for running back ads with no new injuries. You know what I mean? So that's good. Who else? We got Tajay Spears, and
we did see Spears get a little bit more work. That was expected, so still want to pick him up and stash him. I'm obviously not starting him in any leagues if I don't have to, but top end handcuff. Jaden Blue, with the Miles Sanders news that we got at the end of last week that he's now out for the season, so he's now the handcuff to Javonte Williams. So lottery ticket potential there. And then 2 handcuffs that we don't spend a lot of time talking about. I mean, you could pick up Brian Robinson. You could pick up Tyler Algier. They're available in a lot of leagues if you want to just sort of play the handcuff game. There's really not much for me to say about those guys in terms of aside from that. But I think just in terms of the underlying handcuffs that could be league winners at some point if there's an injury, Emmanuel Wilson and Isaiah Davis. You brought this up off the air. The Jets could potentially trade Breece Hall in a contract year. So Davis with Braylon Allen hurt could step into a bigger role. But for the most part, we're talking about, make it through the 3rd or 4th run of waivers if you just have an open roster spot to play with. These are, players you could stash on your bench.
quarterbacks. Who do you like this week?
Aaron Rodgers. It's hard to ignore. He had the 2nd best game against the Browns this season, only the 2nd quarterback to go over 20 fantasy points against them. So coming off that game, then he gets the Bengals this week. 4 of 6 quarterbacks have been 20 points or more against the Bengals. So playing well and, good matchup. So he's a borderline starter heading into week 7 with no Lamar Jackson still because he's on a bye now, and now no Josh Allen. So if you want to pivot, especially if you've still been chasing the position, Aaron Rodgers is my favorite guy. I don't like Jackson Dart for week 6. Let me rephrase that. For week 7. I don't like Jackson Dart for week 7. The reason I have number 2 is because the Broncos number 2 in fewest fantasy points allowed to opposing quarterbacks is because he's facing Denver. The best thing that Dart has done so far, 50 or more rushing yards in all 3 of his starts, 2 rushing touchdowns. The Broncos are the best team at shutting down running quarterbacks. They contained Justin Fields, held him below his average. But going into that game, including matchups against Jalen Hurts, Daniel Jones, I think there's another running quarterback in there. They've held their opposing quarterbacks to 13 carries for 15 yards prior to facing Justin Fields. So if Dart is not going to run, we don't know if Darius Slayton will be back. But long term, though, once you get past this game, he gets the Eagles again. Then he gets the Bears in there and the 49ers, who obviously are not the same defense with the injuries that they're dealing with. So the matchups coming up are good for Jackson Dart. So long term, I like him. Bryce Young, if you need another emergency starter, you kept harping on this, Adam, and you're right. You're 50% at this point. The 3-game schedule for the Carolina Panthers, we said going into week 5, Dolphins, Cowboys, Jets. Bad against the Dolphins fantasy wise, good against the Cowboys. Now he gets the Jets. Did a great job against Bo Nix, but still Bryce Young low end starter. Trevor Lawrence, I think, is an interesting play this week because I don't know really how good the Rams' pass defense is. They are 7th against opposing quarterbacks, but 3 of the last 4 quarterbacks against them, two of the past 4 quarterbacks against them, 26.2 fantasy points. So he might have an opportunity coming off back-to-back games with over 23 fantasy points to be a low-end starter. Mac Jones still in play if Brock Purdy's not out. I know he didn't have the best day, but they're second in pass attempts in the NFL right now. He did throw for over 340 yards, just had the 2 interceptions, no touchdowns, and maybe getting a lot of help if George Kittle and Ricky Pearsall do return. So Mac Jones can still be an emergency starter. Joe Flacco over 22 fantasy points in his debut. So not a bad option there if you're stuck. Certainly should be rostered in all Superflex and 2 quarterback leagues. And then keep an eye on the Minnesota situation. I would still prefer it to be Carson Wentz because you get the revenge game narrative against the Eagles, and he has been over 19 fantasy points in 2 of 3 starts so far this season. So I think he gives them their best chance, and I think he's the best fantasy quarterback, at least right now. And then make sure in all Superflex and 2 quarterback leagues that Jacoby Brissett is rostered because he may get another start. Cardinals have their bye in week 8, so they may not rush Kyler Murray back. And Brissett scored 24.7 fantasy points in his start against Colts.
A lot of names, a lot of good quarterbacks to pick up if you need one. Okay, we'll take a break and talk about wide receivers after this. Okay, so who are the wide receivers to get?
So this is the position that is a lot of options, but not a lot of star power at it. So I'm going to go with Kayshon Boutte as the first one to add. And we talked about this on Sunday Night Show. Like, is this really something that's sustainable? The one thing I think that is sustainable that has been sustainable for Boutte has been his playing time. So he's been on the field a lot for the Patriots, just hasn't had a lot of opportunities. And I still think they're trying to figure out what they are from a passing game standpoint, or not what they are, who they have to rely on from a passing game standpoint.
I feel that. Yeah, they're right.
So it was Hunter Henry early. It was Diggs the 2 previous weeks. Boutte had 1 good game to start the season. So it's not a bad option just to take a flyer on, but he would be the top guy there. I would kind of ignore DeMario Douglas, but deeper leagues, if you want to take a shot on him, he's certainly not at the top of the list. Josh Downs now has back-to-back games where he's been productive, scored a touchdown against the Cardinals. He's second for me. I know it's crowded. I know he's been losing opportunities at times this season to Michael Pittman and Tyler Warren, but we know what kind of player he is, how explosive he can be. And I think as this offense continues to evolve a little bit, maybe he's going to take on a little bit bigger role. So he's second. I have Jalen Coker third. I'm excited to have him coming back. I think we might get him this week. He was close last week, so I still want to make sure he's rostered, especially if you can stash him on an IR spot. So he's third for me. And then we get into the injury guys, and this is where it becomes very interesting and potentially productive for you. So Calvin Ridley, we don't know if he's going to play next week. You got Alec Eilman. You want to play the sound? Go ahead.
Oh, you're waiting for me?
Yep.
Oh, that's not it. There we go.
Eric. Yep. Eilman. 2 disappointing games in a row, but may have a bump in production. I know Van Jefferson kind of stepped up with Ridley not there, but worth taking a flyer on just because he's somebody I think they want to invest in the future, and maybe Cam Ward can lean on him a little bit more. In Arizona, Zay Jones would be the one I'd look at first over Michael Wilson. He's available in 99% of leagues, so easy guy to take a flyer on there just to see if there's something for him. But he did have a good game against the Colts. Then you got the situation in Tampa. So we know as of Monday, Chris Godwin not going to play next Monday against the Lions. And most likely Emeka Egbuka is going to be out. Now, Mike Evans could return, but if you're looking at the receiving corps for the Buccaneers, and please correct me if you think otherwise, but I have Cameron Johnson first, Sterling Shepard second, and Tez Johnson third in terms of how I want to add them this week. All of them are rostered in less than 90% of leagues. I would imagine Shepard gets the most chances from a target perspective, but we haven't really seen those monster target games for the Bucs so far this year. Like Egbuka is kind of living in that 7-8 target range. Godwin, when he came back, had a 10 target game, but I don't know how much of that is sustainable. And again, what happens when Mike Evans is there? So we could be looking at a 6-7 target type of game, 6-7. So for me, Cameron Johnson showed a lot of big play potential, And against the Lions, I think that matters. So I'll take him first, Shepard second, Tez Johnson third. Jordan Whittington now comes into play with the Puka Nacua injury. We don't know if he's going to play in week 7 against the Jaguars. Marquise Brown, look, he's got Rashee Rice back, but I still think he'll be on the field. So he's worth adding after scoring 2 touchdowns. I don't know about you, but I would prefer to pick up Darius Slayton and wait out his return than to chase little Jordan Humphrey, who did have, I believe, 8 targets.
Oh, yeah.
That does not feel sustainable. So Slayton, no guarantee he's going to play, but I would pick him up. And then obviously still Christian Watson's worth rostering if you can, because when he comes back, he may have some opportunities to make plays. So you get the gist of what this is. It's not a great list. There's not a must start player here, but there are a lot of must roster players, I think.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, that Tampa Bay Detroit game could be a 60-point game, total. Could get a ton of pass attempts. And those wide receivers are available in every league, basically. So I don't have any strong opinion about who to pick up first. It wouldn't be Shepard first. I kind of agree with what you're saying here, but I look forward to kind of hashing that out on the show tomorrow.
Yep.
Got a lot of opportunity there. I think from a long-term perspective, all the names you said, long-term, I think Slayton would be my guy. Even if he plays this week, no chance I'm starting him against Denver. But Slayton, to me, has the best chance to have, like a consistent 6 or more targets.
I would agree.
But, yeah, he was so bad 2 weeks ago. It's hard to trust him. Tight ends, what do we got?
So tight end actually has a lot of good options. I think you got to look at Harold Fannin first, just with the chance of no David Njoku dealing with the knee injury and what we've seen from the tight ends in the 2 games that Dylan Gabriel has started. Second, I have Michael Mayer. We don't know when or if Brock Bowers will play in week 7, but clearly there's a chance for him to be involved. I know it's not the easiest matchup against the Chiefs. They did just give up a touchdown to Sam Laporta. It was a tough catch, but I think Mayer will be involved and somebody I would like to roster. 3, I'm going to go Cade Otton, slightly ahead of Oronde Gadsden. I think, again, just as you alluded to, that game, even if just a 1-week scenario, could be a monster game for Cade Otton, who played well against the 49ers, and this receiving core could just be decimated.
He might be the best one to pick up. I mean, in the passing game. For Tampa Bay.
I agree. I think if you're looking for if you're saying, oh, I need a flex for this week, and it's Otton and the receivers, I would probably go with Otton as well.
Or if you need both a wide receiver and a tight end, and you have, you're deciding who to put a higher claim in for. Although, yeah, I don't know, it's a tough one because there are a lot of tight ends you could pick up. I'd probably rather have Fannin and a Bucs wide receiver or something like that, and you could probably pull that off.
Agreed.
Anyway, go ahead.
But Gadsden, again, first game without Quentin Johnson. We don't know how long Johnson will be out. Who knows how much of that was the Miami situation, wanting to feature him, going back to the place where his dad played, but coming off a 7-catch game. And then, look, Evan Ingram, 3 straight games with at least 6 targets. I know it was miserable against the Jets, but the entire offense was miserable. Now you get the revenge game narrative against the Giants. So maybe he gets a little bit of an opportunity for at least 1 week. And let's give our guy Ben some credit. He mentioned Taysom Hill, as he said he would start him over Mason Taylor, one of our listeners. And he got a touchdown. We may get some rushing touchdowns for him moving forward.
Yeah.
I also wouldn't give up on Mason Taylor yet either. He's only 46% rostered. I'd go right back to him against the Panthers. So he's not at the top of the list because I think a lot of people are going to be, concerned and probably going to get dropped. I still would plan to start Mason Taylor this week.
Played 95% of the snaps. Okay. Thank you, Jamie. It's going to be a busy waiver wire for sure. A lot of injuries, a lot of opportunity here. I'm just thinking about how important the waiver wire has been over the last few weeks, and it was with these running backs in particular. And this week will be no exception. Week 7. We'll be right back. We'll be back tomorrow, actually, on Fantasy Football Today. See ya.